Sounds great. Okay, let's go ahead and call to order the work session of the East Grand Forks City Council for Tuesday, April 8th, 2025 at 5 o'clock. Would everyone please turn on your microphones? And the city clerk, please call roll.
Mayor Mark
Here.
Council President Brian Larson.
Here.
Council Vice President Emery.
Here.
Council members Tammy Schumacher.
Here.
Ben Pachulinski.
Here.
Dale Helms.
Here.
Donald Casey.
Here.
Karen Peterson.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Let's dive right into it. Agenda item number 1 is an operations update from American Crystal Sugar. Our guests here are Ryan Wall and Chris Patullo. Gentlemen, go ahead.
Yeah, we also have, so I'll just jump into the introductions. We also have Doug Emerson, who's our environmental affairs manager, and then Mark Nelson, who's actually the vice chairman of our board of directors and farms in this district. So that's who we have. A little bit about myself. So I'm currently the Vice President of Administration for American Crystal Sugar. A lot of you in the room know me as a former factory manager for the East Grand Forks location. I've been with the company for 20 years, and I've worked in 4 of our locations, so Drayton, Crookston, Hillsborough, and East Grand Forks. So that's my history. Chris?
So, yeah, I'm Chris Patullo, Director of Operations, which technically means I'm running 2 factories. I'm in the East Grand Forks factory as well as the Drayton factory. Similar background to Ryan. I've been with the company for 21, 22 years. I can't remember exactly which.
I think it's 22.
22. See, he's in charge of admin now. So 22 years, and I've also been worked in 4 factories, all of the factories except Moorhead. So similar background.
Doug, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Doug Emerson. I'm the Environmental Affairs Manager at Crystal Sugar. I've been with the company for about 15 years and have held the same position ever since. So
Very nice. Okay, I won't make you introduce yourself, Mark. So just want to give you an update on last year's crop, the harvest, how the operation's gone at our factories so far this campaign, what the planning outlook looks like this spring moving forward, and then some of the projects that we've completed in East Grand Forks and what we're looking at doing in the future. So if we look back at, and each slide is going to have a little tidbit at the top, a little nugget of the benefits that Crystal Sugar has brought through our industry. So at the top or bottom, you're going to see that along the way. So last year's crop, we actually got into the fields pretty early. Our average planting date was April 27th, and the way we track our average planting date is the date at which 50% of our acres are planted, which means some are planted before that, some are planted after. So that's an early date for us. Historically, our average planting date is May 5th. So we gained last year on the crop about 8 growing days. That resulted in a record crop for us. We harvested 13.2 million tons of sugar beets last year, and that was across 412,000 acres. The growing season was pretty good. We had good moisture in the spring, adequate rains throughout the summer. The fall was a little bit dry, which aided in our harvest. We started pre-harvest on August 13th, and we started full harvest on October 3rd. So if you're familiar with pre-harvest for us, that's when we start pulling beets out of the ground to start the factories up. And we only harvest enough during the week to supply the factories for operations. So that was the harvest season. The sugar content on that crop was better than average. 18.5% is above our historical average. That plays into those good growing conditions, and it also speaks to the investment we've made in our ag practices and also our seed varieties. So we spent a lot of time on modifying genetics in our seeds to maximize sugar production by increasing disease resistance, et cetera, et cetera. So a good crop, a great harvest, things went well. How's the processing going for this campaign? So that record harvest means we had to push our slice rates at our facilities. We're capped on the amount of tons we can slice at each facility. There's only so much that we can push through. We can give and take a little bit here and there to maybe inch it forward. But we're looking at 280 days of processing campaign this year. We've got about 42, 41 left. We're looking at finishing on May 20th of our processing season. So that's one of the longest campaigns we've ever run. I think we had one campaign in the 2012-ish time frame that maybe ran to almost June. So this is one of the longest that we've had. we're seeing, so when I've spoke to you, a few of you in the past about employees, I've said we've struggled staffing, and I'll say currently that's not the case. We've got a very high-performing workforce right now. We're almost fully staffed, so our company has a total of 1,700 employees across all of our locations, and as it stands at the beginning of this week, we're only short about 30 individuals across those 1,700 positions. That's a great place for us to be in. That's somewhere that 2 years ago, that number was closer to 200, were the vacancies that we had. The crop has stored well. We did have some moderate challenges with some of the beets in what we call our non-ventilated piles. So some of the beet piles we don't actually freeze down. We just put them out there and hope for the best. So that harvest sugar content of 18.5, we lost a little bit of that because of some of those challenges we had. So our average slice, our average sugar content sliced is at 18.3% as of this week. I will mention that, talk about advancement programs within our company. About 1/3 of that total employee population is currently enrolled in one of our advanced training programs. So roughly 600 employees that are currently enrolled in those. So we invest in our employees. We've developed internal training programs across a bunch of different technician level positions. And so that's a thing that I just want to say. We invest in our employees. Planning outlook, we're expected to begin planning around April 15th. I'm guessing there'll be some individuals that are going to be excited and want to get into the field maybe even this weekend, so it could be a little bit earlier. But conditions right now, it's obviously you look outside, it's dry outside, so once it warms up, once the soil temp heats up, they will start planting. And so we're looking at, again, probably the probability of an early plant date compared to historical, which means possibly a good crop outlook. Estimating total acres planted to exceed 400,000. We have an allocation of acres we can plant that's set by the USDA. And over the past 20 years, we have not filled that allocation because our grower practices have been good on the fields, and we've actually raised more tons and more sugar per acre planted. And so we actually have reduced the number of acres we planted. 400,000 is the estimation to get to our optimum tonnage, total tonnage that we need to slice. That number is lower than what I had up there earlier, 412,000, because we are projecting increased yields due to those investments in seed varieties and farming practices. Switching gears, talk a little bit about the East Grand Forks specifically. And some of the investments that we've done there recently and some of the investments that we have upcoming. This last summer, we installed a new pond aeration system, and that's the picture you see up on the right-hand side there. That's a stormwater pond for us that collects runoff on site, and we treat that now with aeration. Prior to that project being installed, that pond was simply covered, and we would keep that stormwater under cover and feed that into a different treatment system slowly throughout the year. This new system, it's a multi-million-dollar investment, allows us to treat that water as it enters that pond system, which will free up some space on the other treatment system. The other two projects listed there are steam economy projects. So we're a very heavy energy user, and we continually invest in different heater projects to increase efficiency, to lower overall steam demand, which means for us a reduction of coal that we have to burn. That's the source of energy to produce our steam. So those two projects, again, multi-million-dollar projects that we invested in East Grand Forks last year. Looking on the horizon, we have, as part of our main wastewater treatment plant, we have an equalization pond. And the pond cover recently has become compromised, and so we're going to need to replace that. Again, many millions of dollars invested into that. That will be taking place this coming summer. The compromised cover, we ended up having to put a temporary cover on it here recently within the last 2 weeks to avoid some operational issues. And the other project I wanted to mention is the wet hopper extension for us. So the wet hopper, when I speak of that, that's the area that receives beets into our factory. That's the spot where a trans systems truck, which you see on the road, pulls up and gets dumped and starts the process of creating sugar. Last Minnesota legislative session, we got approval to have increased load weights on a small portion of Highway 2. Happens to be in the city of East Grand Forks. From the border, North Dakota-Minnesota border, over to the corner that would take you down to Crystal Sugar property. That increase in trailer weights is allowing us to modify our trailer configurations to haul 122,000 pounds instead of the standard 97,000 pound truck. What that means for us and for you as a community is less trucks going down that road every single day. So those beets that typically come from Voss, Ardagh, Oslo region, so the North Dakota side of our northern portion of our company, we'll eventually have a new configuration hauling 122,000 pounds instead of 97,000 pounds. That requires us to modify that receiving station. And again, many millions of dollars being invested in that so that we can reduce the number of trucks on the road, reduce our footprint. That tidbit at the top, steam economy for us, 14% reduction since 2004 on total steam use across the entire company. So we do invest a lot into energy efficiency to try to minimize our costs and minimize our impact. And the last slide I have is just talking about the economic impact that American Crystal Sugar has in our communities. So NDSU has done a study, now this is the third study that they've completed to evaluate what impact does Crystal Sugar have the economies within the region. And this one's about 2 years old. The study showed that there was a $6.1 billion economic impact in Minnesota and North Dakota annually. That's not just Crystal Sugar's revenue, that's not just our sales of our products, that's the impact to the local dealerships, the local cafes, insurance agencies, all of those types of entities in the valley. And if you look at that on a state basis, North Dakota, it's $2.2 billion or 1.6% of the total state economy. And in Minnesota, it's $3.8 billion, 0.5% of the total economy in the state of Minnesota. And another kind of neat tidbit is Minnesota, North Dakota, so you've got American Crystal Sugar, you've got MNDAC, which is just outside of Wahpeton, and then you have Southern Min Beet Sugar Cooperative, which is in the southern part of Minnesota. Between those three companies, we produce 50% of all the beet sugar that's made in the United States. And beet sugar makes up 50%, actually a little bit over 50% of the total domestic production in the United States. So a quarter of the sugar that's created in the U.S. is made in the states of North Dakota and Minnesota. And that last line, we do make a concerted effort to give back to our communities, and our goal has been to provide back to communities 5 cents for every ton harvested within our communities. So if you look at a 13.2 million ton harvest, that's over $600,000 that we look to put back into the communities. And that's all I have. And I'll be happy to answer questions as best as I can.
All right, thank you. Any, Mr. Helms?
Yeah, I got one. With your record crops and sugar content and so on and so forth, is that putting a stress on storage for you for processed sugar, or are you okay on that?
So we market our sugar with another cooperative, United Sugars, and I will say that they have to be more diligent to get the product moved quicker to customers. Yeah, because in a crop like this, we have not increased our storage assets, which then means that sales and delivery have to be faster. Yeah,
That's kind of why I was wondering, because I hadn't seen anything going up out there for storage or anything.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they've responded well. They've done well for us.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Olsted.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for being good community partners to the City of East Grand Forks. I know we meet off and on every quarter to go over everything and talk about what's going on and what's going to happen in the future. But I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate the efforts you guys made out there in our community. So thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments for American Crystal Sugar? Okay, I'll just wrap it up by echoing what the mayor said. Thank you for keeping us updated. We've got a long-lasting and I believe mutually beneficial relationship between American Crystal Sugar and the City of East Grand Forks, and look forward to continuing down that same path with you guys. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Up to good work.
Okay, well, let's move on to agenda item number 2 then. Review of Safe Streets for All Safety Action Plan. Stephanie Halford and Blue Weber and guests.
Blue Weber's not here, we got Cody Christensen.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Quick intro, Stephanie Halford with the East Grand Forks MPO.
Cody Christensen with Bolton & Mink, the consultant project manager. So I'm here instead of Blue, so sorry for all of you that were anticipating Blue being here, but
They're so disappointed.
Yeah. I'm here today to kind of give an update on our Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan. We sent over some presentation materials around December of last year, and I think the last time we were in person in front of this group was last summer. So there's been a lot of work happening on the project. So we're here to kind of give an update on where things are and where we're heading over the next couple months. So just to kind of brief recap on what I'll be talking about today, just giving an overview where we're at on our schedule, an update on our engagement, where we're looking forward in our implementation and our project prioritization, and then, like I mentioned, some of our next steps over the next couple months. So project schedule, we kicked this project off back in March of 2024. We're already crazily in April of 2025. So we are just a few months out from our project completion, wrap up, and steady adoption. So we are getting to the end of our implementation, project identification phase, and getting ready to get into our draft and final report, documentation, adoption process. And along with that, a few more public engagement opportunities here in the next couple months. Speaking of that, we have a couple of community advisory groups. So we are working with Safe Kids, the University Park Neighborhood, the Housing Authority, as well as
DDA.
The DDA. Thank you. And have been coordinating with them throughout the project to get those additional voices that we don't always get when we're just out talking to the general public. But those organizations have a good understanding of what's happening in their particular areas of the metro area. So keeping involved with them. We're here giving our agency presentations this month. We'll also be talking to the Grand Forks City Council as well as the MPO's TAC and Policy Board. We're also having another council workshop. I think it's actually has been scheduled for May 1st, so my slide is already out of date. But for those that were involved in the last one in December, we'll be getting that group back together here in a few weeks to get a little more into the weeds on some of the projects we've identified and how that implementation process will be looking going forward. And then the other one is the public open house in May. So we're starting to look at calendars and other community events on where we'll get back out in the community to talk about, again, the kind of draft plan at that point and some of our implementation processes. So on the slide here, you'll see kind of the key elements of that safety action plan as are required from our federal grant. The highlighted ones are the ones we're kind of focusing on here over the next couple months. That leadership coordination target setting, that's part of that council workshop we're having in a few weeks. Also pulling together the policy and process recommendations. We did a pretty robust policy review back last fall, and so now we're kind of creating some policy recommendations to give some of those a little more teeth for the various agencies. And then the data-driven strategy, project prioritization, along with specific timeframes. So that is those projects we've identified, and getting those safety countermeasures also identified, and putting that implementation plan together. Not only looking at potential SS4A grant opportunities, but other federal and state grant opportunities as well, to keep the momentum of this safety action plan going forward. Again, like I said, including all the necessary elements of our action plan, those policy and process recommendations. Again, drawing from, we did a peer review of some peer MPO areas and cities with similar demographics as well as geography. So really pulling all of that in. And really the big one at the bottom is that specific infrastructure solutions. So our high injury network, just to kind of bring that back up to people. So these red corridors are where just over 50% of our fatal and serious crashes are happening on, I think, around 9% of our transportation network. So it gets us to focus in a little bit more. And so that matrix of some of those solutions, not only is that identifying projects that are along these high injury networks, but also looking at what are a majority of those corridors that make up that network. It's a lot of high speed, high volume, commercial corridors. And so part of our action plan will have kind of some one-pagers on those specific categories and some safety countermeasures that could be implemented in those various areas. So we worked really closely with our steering committee as well as both the planning and engineering departments at both the City of Grand Forks and City of East Grand Forks to work on identifying specific projects, whether that's an intersection or a corridor, kind of along the high injury network, but as well as other places where we may see a need to be more proactive than reactive. The high injury network is a very reactive, data-driven piece, but also, we did a lot of engagement with the council, with our various engagement opportunities. So bringing those pieces in to identify these various locations. And again, even we went and had some one-on-one meetings with both City of Grand Forks and City of East Grand Forks to make sure the areas we were identifying made sense. And so with that, we went through a project prioritization, trying to set that list of where we should attack first to kind of get the most bang for our buck. And so we put together the scoring criteria. So if a corridor or intersection was on our high injury network, it got 5 points. If it wasn't, it got 0. We also looked at the critical crash rate, and so how that compares to the state. So if it's above that critical crash rate, it kind of was on a slide, it was 5, and if it wasn't, then it also was a 0. And then as our safety countermeasures were identified, so things we can do along these corridors to make them safer for all of our users, that became a sliding scale of 0 to 5. So obviously the ones that are having the highest impact are getting 5, and it's kind of a sliding scale down from there. But also critical was bringing in our engagement. So again, not just looking at the hard crashes that have occurred over the last 5 to 10 years, but also bringing that engagement in. So if there are areas that were identified where people are feeling unsafe, or places they avoid because they don't want to walk, bike, drive, that played into the scoring criteria as well. As well as looking at our equity areas, so our areas of poverty, disability, areas of our Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And the fourth one that I always forget. There's a fourth one.
There is a fourth one.
It'll be in the report. And then
Give them
also,
something to look forward to.
yeah, exactly. A little mystery there.
Yeah.
And then as well, looking at the cost, again, trying to, again, create the most bang for our buck, so a high-impact, low-cost solution will rise to the top. So that would be a maximum points awarded of 35. And so there's a draft stamp on these, but I wanted to get these out to you all as we've been discussing this actually at a steering committee we had this morning, getting these finalized. But just kind of wanted to put this out there. So these are the segments. So the green rows are those on the Minnesota side. Blue rows are on the North Dakota side. The dark colors are DOT-owned roads, where the lighter colors are city streets. So on the East Grand Forks side, the Murray Bridge was the top corridor, looking to add, either a shared use path or some sort of separated bike facility along that bridge, connecting the shared use paths on either side. It's kind of a critical missing piece there, as well as looking at Bigland Road from First Street, basically down to the middle school and elementary school. Third on that list was US 2, kind of that curve on the northeast corner of East Grand Forks with that connection to the county road there. And then the bottom there was 14th Street, which is the connection at Central Avenue right by the Hugo's. So those are kind of how those played out on the East Grand Forks side. On the Grand Forks side, I'll kind of just narrow in on kind of the top 4 or 5. The top one being 32nd Avenue, roughly from 38th Street over to Washington. It says on there, implement bike and ped plan improvements. Essentially, there's some gaps in the shared use path along the south side that either don't exist or it's just a sidewalk. So looking to expand those to full shared use paths, as well as a couple of intersection improvements. There's a couple left of negative offset of those left turn lanes. So there's a couple of improvements there. The other big one being Washington Street from Demers down to Hammerling. Again, looking at access management, ADA improvements, that sort of thing, and that kind of next Washington Street project there. The other two kind of towards the top there are University Avenue from Columbia to 3rd. Looking at adding a side path through that corridor, and then 17th Avenue South from 20th Street to Belmont Road. Those are kind of the top prioritization pieces for the segments in Grand Forks. The other two pieces then are intersections, and some of these play into those corridors. But there's a few more intersections than corridors, so that's why these are broken up. So again, this is all on the East Grand Forks side. And kind of those top two being the River Road 17th Street / 12th Avenue intersection, potential roundabout there to make that intersection a little more easy to get through and a little more legible on how to get through that intersection. The other one being Central Avenue and 23rd Street, so kind of on the top part of Central before you head out of town. Then on the Grand Forks side, again, kind of rising to the top, Demers Avenue, Washington Street. It's been a safety intersection for a long time. So continue to look at potential improvements there. Belmont Road and 4th Avenue South, potential roundabout at that location. That was identified over near the Phoenix Elementary School Safe Routes to School project or study. As well as 17th Street and 17th Avenue. And I guess the fourth one there is 5th Street and 8th Avenue North. So those are kind of the top intersections on the Grand Forks side. So again, we were working on finalizing this prioritization. So these tables have changed a little bit over the last couple of weeks since I sent this out, but they are roughly in line of what was presented here today. We're really looking forward to having our second council workshop on May 1st. to really get into the weeds on some of these corridors and intersections, and our implementation plan on how potential projects could be put together in certain grant application packages, and what some of those various aspects could be. And then again, going back out to the public in May to kind of give a big update on what's been happening over the last 6 months or so since we had our last public engagement opportunity. So that is what I had for today. Unless Stephanie had anything, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Okay, I don't see any questions. I'm interested to see what the group comes up with to improve the connection over the Louis Murray Bridge. I think that'll be very interesting and beneficial to connect the south end of our greenway to the north end of our greenway. So,
Yep, very much so.
all right, well, thank you for the update.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, moving on. Item number 3 has been pulled. We'll re-meet on that on the 15th. Move to item number 4. Consider approving the joint fire engine purchase and replacement plan memorandum of understanding. Chief Boushee.
Thank you, Council President, Mayor, Council. Last month, Council authorized staff to develop a memorandum of understanding between the City of East Grand Forks and the 7 townships that we provide fire and rescue service to. This MOU was in regard to that joint fire engine purchase and replacement plan. So in doing that, Mr. Huttunen, Mr. Gallstead, and myself put together an MOU, and I supplied you with a copy of that, and it's ready to go. My recommendation is that you approve and sign this memorandum of understanding. Any questions?
Any questions for Chief?
No, that's good.
I see none. You've done a great job of explaining this. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And moving on to our last item here, item number 5, discuss Tri-City Council meeting with Crookston and Thief River Falls. And Mr. Huttunen is on his way back from St. Paul as we speak. And so let me just get caught up here. The meeting time and date for the Tri-City Council meeting with Crookston and Thief River is Tuesday, April 29th. And the meeting place is in Thief River Falls at the Ralph Engelstad Arena, the Imperial Room. And Reid is wondering who from the council is planning on attending. I don't know if we have a show of hands generally, or just, Megan, if you'll maybe help us take notes. And then if we would like to carpool, we have the opportunity to do that. We would meet here at City Hall at 4:30. So if you'd like to carpool, if you'll just let us know, or let Megan know, so we arrange for the right vehicle. So that's the meeting time. Again, it'll be 6 o'clock in Thief River Falls. There will be a meal served, which we appreciate, and then we'll meet at 6. Is there any special agenda items or discussion topics anyone from the council would like to see included on the agenda? Yep. So if we've got some time, if you'll just reach out to Reid and Megan with agenda items or discussion topics, plenty of time there. Any other questions?
We don't have a normal meeting on Tuesday, right?
Fifth Tuesday, yep. So we appreciate everyone's time here on what's usually a week off. Okay, any other questions or comments on the upcoming Tri-City meeting? All right, I see none. That takes us to the end of our agenda for today. I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Helms. Second by Riepel. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Meeting is closed. Thank you, everyone.
Just like that?
Supper at Mason.